Okay, now it's on. Everybody hearing? 1, 2, 1, 2. You hear me, Mike? You hear me, Mike? You hear me, Mike? Hello? Okay, good? Okay. Here. Jeez. All right. Let's go with preset. Come on, jeez. Fix it in post.
Thanks very much. Okay. Everybody ready to go? Come on in, Chris, Doug, gather on in. All right, so good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to the gentlemen that have joined me up here today. I'm joined by Sheriff Sean Golden of Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, by my Chief of Detectives John McCabe of the Prosecutor's Office. Behind me is Acting Chief Frank Lassess from the Colts Neck Police Department. We have my Deputy Chief of Detectives Doug Johnson, the Chief of the Ocean Township Police Department, Steve Peters, and my Director of the Major Crimes Bureau, Chris Decker. So we wanted to give you an update on where things stand on the 2 arson investigations that are occurring here in Monmouth County. Before I do that, I want to give a great shout out, great credit and gratitude to the fire departments in Ocean Township and Colts Neck and the 20+ departments that played a role in extinguishing these fires, particularly the one in Colts Neck, which, as you know from yesterday's press conference that we held, was burning well into the evening hours. I'm happy to say that that fire has been extinguished at 15 Willowbrook, and I just want to say on behalf of the entire law enforcement community that we are grateful for all of the fire department's assistance in investigating this matter, but most importantly, getting those fires put out so we can take a deep dive into this investigation. Regretfully, today, I can identify 2 of the 4 bodies that were recovered from the Colts Neck residence, and those are Keith and Jennifer Canero, both of which owned and resided that home at 15 Willowbrook in Colts Neck. And today we can tentatively identify the other 2 remains as those of the Canero children. The reason why I can't conclusively identify them at this point is because the medical examiner's office continues to do their forensic examination, and because of the condition that 3 of the 4 bodies that were recovered from that home were in because of the fire, that is complicating matters. We expect that information will be confirmed by the medical examiner's office at some point before the end of the day today. The Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office, the Colts Neck Police Department are investigating the Colts Neck matter as a multiple homicide and arson case. Yesterday we specified just arson. The case has transcended into a multiple homicide investigation in addition to the arson matter. And to date, our investigation has revealed that unfortunately, sadly, each of these individuals were the victims of homicidal violence at some point prior to when the fire was set at 15 Willowbrook. As I mentioned yesterday, 3 of the 4 remains were severely burned, and I told you that's complicated matters, but that is not going to prevent us from doing our jobs because those 2 crime scenes have and will continue to remain secured until the completion of our investigation. I know there's been a lot of speculation about gunshot wounds with some or all of those victims in that home. I can confirm that Keith Canero, whose remains were found in front of the home, was shot, but I can't go any further than that at this point in time. Remember, the cause and manner of death are going to be the part and parcel of the findings that come from the medical examiner's office, and it would be premature to even discuss or speculate that until that investigation is complete. As I stand here today, we continue to work with county engineers on making sure that we can safely access the residents in Colts Neck so we can continue our forensic examination. But again, that scene remains secured with law enforcement ensuring that there's no there's no issues with the integrity of that crime scene, so that will likely go on over the next several days. We have enlisted the support of a number of law enforcement agencies, some of which I've mentioned here, but I'd like to add a few others to that list. That includes the New Jersey State Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the New Jersey Regional Computer Forensics Laboratory, and a host of other municipal police departments that work shoulder to shoulder with these chiefs in the county that are willing to share their efforts and assistance in this investigation. Now I want to change gears and I want to talk about the arson that occurred in Ocean Township on 27 Tilton Drive. We announced that our office charged Paul J. Canero, 52-year-old of Ocean Township, with aggravated arson in the early morning hours of today. That defendant's first court appearance will be held on Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. Time and courtroom will follow, but on that date, he'll have not only his initial appearance, but a detention review hearing before the court. Now, as many of you might be familiar with, aggravated arson is a second-degree crime. It carries 5 to 10 years imprisonment, and the allegations by the state with this particular aggravated arson are captured in the affidavit that accompanies the criminal complaint that was filed earlier today, which all of you should have access to. A couple additional points before I try to answer any questions you might have. I really want to convey my thanks and gratitude to my staff that's working on this investigation, as well as all of the members of the law enforcement community that continue to work on these investigations as I speak with you here today. They're going to keep working tirelessly on this case to deliver justice to these 4 victims, and many of them will not be able to celebrate the holidays, the Thanksgiving holidays, with their families. But I have to say I'm quite honored and privileged to work with all of them, these people that take their oaths and their dedication to their job so seriously. So I'd like to commend all of them that are working on this. And thank you, gentlemen, for your team's roles in working this case. Finally, the last thing I'd like to say is to the members of the Colts Neck community. We in law enforcement know Colts Neck to be a quiet, safe, and close, tight-knit community. I am sure that you're feeling the reverberations and the traumatic and emotional effects of the loss of the Canero family, and our hearts in law enforcement go out to you. In that same vein, if anyone has any information about that arson and homicide investigation or the one in Ocean Township, I really encourage you to call us in Monmouth County Law Enforcement. With respect to the one in Colts Neck, you can call Detective Pat Petrozello at 800-733-7443. He's a detective with the prosecutor's office, or Colts Neck Police Detective Zarullo, which a number I will provide. For the Ocean arson investigation, please call Detective Brian Weisbrot of the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office at the same number I've just given, 800-733-7443, or Ocean Township Detective Chris Brady at 732-531-1800. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions you might have. Just bear with us because this is an ever-evolving investigation. Yes, sir.
Ron Allen, NBC News.
Ron, how are you?
The question is why? Why would this suspect allegedly kill his members of his family?
We're working on that. This happened less than 24 hours ago. Well, we discovered this around 12:30, so it's a little bit over 24 hours. That is something that, of course, we want to answer in any of our investigations. What you're getting at is motive. But I would just caution you to let's crawl before we walk. We have a great team assigned to this. If there is information to release to the public as to motive, I would encourage you to come to the detention review hearing, and if there is information at that point to disclose from the state, it'll be done at that point.
Do you know if there's been any threats against the family?
None that I'm aware of. None that I'm aware of. Yes, sir.
Is Paul Canero a suspect in these murders?
I can't confirm or deny that at this point in time. I can only focus on Paul Canero as a defendant in the Ocean Township aggravated arson that's charged. I mentioned yesterday that one of several avenues that we're considering is whether these 2 arsons, and by virtue of the investigation, how it's involved, whether the arson and the homicide is linked. But I cannot commit to that. I can't confirm or deny it. It's the furthest I can go.
Would it not, sir?
I can't comment on that. I'm sorry.
Where in the house were the bodies actually discovered? Three that were inside the house. Bedrooms, living room, basement?
I'm not going to get into that. I'll only say that Mr. Canero was found outside the front of the home, and the other 3 remains, the wife and the 2 children, were found inside the home. Yes, ma'am.
What was Paul Canero picked up, arrested?
I'm not going to comment on that either. I'm so sorry. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned yesterday that the surrounding communities did not need to be on alert or high alert. Why did you say that?
because we believe that in some form or fashion that this family was targeted. If there was an open threat to the community, if this was random violence where we felt like there was a gunman or somebody who could present a risk to the community, the first thing we would do is put that information out to the public at large. And the second thing we would do is ensure a heavy police presence in areas where we thought there was a concern. But I'm here to tell you at this point in time, I have no reason to believe that's the case. I do believe that this was a targeted situation with the Canaro family. We're still developing that. I can't go any further. But if there's changes to that, we'll certainly let you know. Yes, ma'am.
Without stepping on the toes of the medical examiner's investigation, what can you give us in terms of details about the homicidal violence that you said? Were the children and Jennifer Canaro stabbed? Were they beaten? Was there any blunt force trauma?
The only thing I can give you is what I've just disclosed earlier, and we are confirming that there were gunshot wounds that were sustained by Keith Canaro. Yes, ma'am.
The time the homicides occurred.
No, I can't comment on that, Kathy. I'm sorry, I can't even come close to getting to that. Yes, yes, sir.
Is Keith considered a murder victim, or is there any possibility he may have had a self-inflicted gunshot wound?
Our investigation, we're operating on the presumption that these were all victims of homicide. We have no reason to believe at this point that there was a suicide angle. I know that was some of the earlier reports that came out. At this point in time, we don't believe that's the case.
Prosecutor, can you give us a timeline starting from, I believe, the fire at Paul Canaro's home? Was that the first alarm? Give us a timeline, please.
We received the call at the Ocean Township residence for a call of a fire of roughly 8 a.m. in the morning. I say we're talking about dispatch received the call. With respect to the fire in Colts Neck, there was a call made to county dispatch at the sheriff's office around 12:38. It was a local person, a landscaper or otherwise, that made the call, and as a result, there was a response there. As far as timeline goes, that's the best I can do for you at this point in time.
Are there any indications there were financial problems in the Canaro family?
Still exploring that among several other aspects and avenues, but I couldn't get into it because it would be potentially evidentiary. And I don't mean to be obstructionist with you all. You have to understand that there's going to be a possible prosecution that ensues here. So every time I go too far, I run the risk of tainting a possible jury pool. So I'm not trying to be obstructionist.
Without saying, do you think you have a good idea of why this happened?
I don't get in my business. I said yesterday, it's a bad practice to speculate. I'm going to let the experts that stand behind me and the investigators out there as we speak do their thing before I get too far. Yes, sir.
Were the two brothers business partners?
I'm sorry?
Were the two brothers business partners?
It's my understanding. Yes, I believe they were. And there was a business out of Asbury Park that they ran. It had something to do with technology and possibly pest control.
Can you talk about where Paul's family was at the time of the fire there?
How did the fire stop at Paul's house, at that Ocean Township house?
Stop?
Yes.
That was extinguished by local fire departments that responded.
You said that he set the fire, Paul set the fire. His wife and children were inside the house when the
No.
fire was set? Is that
It's
correct?
just a point of clarification. I said that the state has alleged that he has started the fire at his home. That's why he's charged with aggravated arson. I mean, it's obviously a determination a jury would have to make one day. But our allegations are everything we're going to mention with respect to that are captured in the complaint and affidavit. And by virtue of the fact that he's charged with second degree, we allege that there was a possible risk to family members as a result of his possibly starting that fire. Yes, Brian.
There's two questions. One, a neighbor said that the children did not go to school in the morning. Do we know what time they were killed?
No.
That the murders happened in this house?
Not at this point, we're still exploring that. Remember I mentioned earlier, Brian, that the scene hasn't been rendered safe for forensic investigators to go really in there and take the deep dive that we normally would. Once county engineers release that scene, we'll be able to go in there, we'll be able to do a more thorough arson investigation, and once we do that, questions like when we allege that the accelerant was poured, if there was one, when the fire might have started, will hopefully come into clearer picture. But at this point, we have the scene detained and secured. We're just waiting for the okay, so it's safe for investigators to be able to go in and explore that further.
Okay, the other question, Chris, I had, under what conditions, what time, was there resistance that Mr. Paul Canaro was arrested or detained yesterday or overnight, or can you say where this happened?
I'm not going to say where, but I have no reason to believe that there was any resistance to the arrest at this point in
Can
time.
you clarify the time frame
Yeah.
on the fire, because it was originally reported that it was at 5:30 in the morning at Paul's house?
In Ocean Township?
Yes.
Okay. Chief Peters is confirming that's right. He would know better than me, so let's correct the record and make it 5:30 instead of 8.
5:01 a.m.
Yeah.
5, okay, so not 8 o'clock.
Yes, I was wrong. My apologies. Yeah.
Call 911. Suspect there's any mob involvement in this, and why, what leads you to say that the family was
I'm not going to comment any further on what I have. I just know it's an active and ongoing investigation. Yes, sir?
Why is the FBI working on this case?
Because, you know, we work all in a team atmosphere, and this is obviously a big deal, a quadruple homicide. Don't read anything unnecessary into that. Like Monmouth, I will pride this county. We pride ourselves on working well in a team environment, and that just doesn't include local and county or state investigators, but it also includes our federal law enforcement partners.
So why did the fire take so long to actually put out? Was it a difficult fire to put out, or were you guys trying to preserve the scene for forensics?
Now, that's a tough question. I'd probably reserve that for the fire professionals, but, you know, I realize out there that it was a pretty substantial fire. I saw it myself. There was some stories about the possibility of water shortage. Let me rule that out. The departments did a fabulous job by virtue of the fact that they extinguished it. But, hey, I'm not an expert on fires. Sometimes they get put out quickly. Sometimes they take a little while. Those guys did a great job.
Do you yet know how it was started?
No, like I was saying, we're still trying to get inside there.
Do you know
Yes.
if Pete ran the tech company and Paul ran the pest control company?
The names and ages is 11-year-old Jesse and 8-year-old Sophia. Jesse, and Sophia is common spelling, Sophia.
And how old?
8.
Jesse is the one?
Yes.
Were there conversations between law enforcement and Paul Canaro, maybe even at the scene of the Ocean Township fire, and then later on he was taken?
Look, it's a fair question, but you know I couldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. That would go to possible evidentiary matters. I'm not confirming or denying it. It's just something I can't disclose to the public.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
I'm a little confused. I'm not that bright, but so.
That makes two of us.
Paul's been arrested on an arson charge. You say the family was targeted. So are you actively seeking the suspects who killed his family? And I guess it gets back to the same question. Is Paul a suspect in these murders?
Look, again, I'm not trying to pull punches or dance around you. It's just a question that I can't answer at this point in time. I can't confirm or deny whether he's a suspect. The only thing I can tell you is we are exploring the possibility that these two incidents are linked, like we mentioned yesterday.
Was
Well, let me
Paul
ask you this question. Is there a
in jail?
suspect at
Has
large?
bail been set? Is Paul in jail?
Paul is detained pending his initial appearance at the Monmouth County Correctional Institute. So on Wednesday, the 28th, he'll have an initial appearance and a detention review hearing where a judge will determine whether that detention will carry over. In other words, whether he'll be remanded or released on some type of conditions.
No bail set.
Not at this point. That's something that possibly would happen on Wednesday the 28th of November. Depends on what the defense attorney wants to do.
So should the public worry that there's a quadruple killer out there right now?
No, if that was the case, then you'd hear it from all of us up here that we would be sharing our concerns with the public. But I have no reason to believe that's the case, and I really hope that none of you get carried away in that regard, because I don't want to create a public scare when it's not necessary. Yeah.
What's the holdup on charging him with the homicides and more, other than the aggravated arson at his house?
Because, you know, we can't charge people unless we have evidence. I told you that the scene is secured, but we can't even send largely our investigators and forensic examiners in there to look at the scene because we're waiting for county engineers to release it, just to be able to tell us it's safe, the roof's not going to cave in on you, the floor's not going to cave into the basement. Bear in mind, it was a pretty substantial fire, and we do have to ensure that there's safety to the investigators before we begin.
Clarify some of the timeline here. At 5:01, the Ocean fire was called in. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right?
And it was called in by Paul?
Can't confirm that right now, but it would be on record.
And then 12:38, a fire is called in by the landscaper.
By somebody who was working in the community. As I understand it, it was a landscaper, and then there was a big response therefrom.
And Paul's family, wife and 2 grown children, were able to escape the first fire. Is that correct?
Yes.
And are they in custody? Are they witnesses? What is their status?
I'm not going to comment on their status. The only status that I'm able ethically and legally to comment on it would be the defendant who's charged with aggravated arson. Sorry? Again, I'm not, suspect, person of interest. We are looking at all angles, but I'm not in a position to be able to make those disclosures at this point in time. It would be irresponsible of me to do so.
Well, how do you assure the public there isn't someone out there who's a quadruple killer?
Because I did 3 questions ago.
When will you be able to get into the house? When will engineers clear the house? Do you anticipate getting in there?
I'm hopeful that that'll come in the coming hours, and then investigative teams will be working on that place over the next 48, 72 hours, or whatever it takes.
So
One of the
if you
first
find
things
evidence,
you
could he be
said was that
charged?
you couldn't conclude conclusively identify the children, but you gave their names and ages, so are you identifying the two
No.
children dead as?
We are tentatively identifying them based on our investigation to date. But when it comes to positive identification and confirmation, that will most often follow with a medical examination's completion of their report. The reality is, I understand the circumstances as we sit here today, and it's I'm trying to share as much as I can with you, but also reserve the fact that conclusive or positive identification is reserved for the medical examiners. So it's a tentative ID at this point in time. We have no reason to believe it's anyone other than those two children.
Prosecutor, what was the condition of the mother and the two children's bodies, and how long will it take the ME to determine the exact cause of death?
Well, like I mentioned yesterday, because they were exposed to a fire, their remains were severely burned. The question about how long it'll take the medical examiner's office, I don't know, but I know that the Middlesex County Medical Examiner's Office has deployed multiple people to work on this, and I obviously can understand that it's a priority for them just like it is for us.
Can you talk a little bit more about the evidence that you had to charge this morning with aggravated arson?
I'll defer to things that you've seen in the criminal complaint and the affidavit. That's as far as I can go, which is what's in the current public record, but anything beyond that, I'm not allowed to publicly disclose. Art?
Yeah, Kristen, can you rule out, or are you investigating the possibility that the Colts Neck murders occurred before the Ocean Township fire?
That's a possibility. We're not ruling out any possibilities. It could be that's the case. It could be not. That's something that we're going to be working on. But remember, and nobody wants to get in there and solve this and investigate this more than me and the people up here in our teams. But we have to make sure that Colts Neck scene is clear before we can conduct a much more thorough investigation that we've done. And remember, sorry, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any information on the type of weapon that was used to kill Canaro?
No, not at this point in time that I can publicly disclose.
Was there a pet in the house in Colts Neck?
Not that I know of.
Was there a housekeeper also? I understand that there was somebody living in that house, a fifth person.
There were concerns that there might have been a housekeeper in there, but we have since established that she is alive and well, so no issues there.
Can she provide information? Was she there at the time? Is she helping you in the investigation?
I can only tell you that if we were going to swear you in. Sorry.
Any guns at Paul's house, are they legal?
I have no comment on that. You know, we're undertaking a number of investigative techniques in addition to some of the general ones I've outlined. The only thing I can encourage you to do is just stay tuned. We will continue to share information transparently like we've done here. I'll take two more and then we have to get back to it.
This is a horrific scene. Can you describe where the bodies were found in the house?
Well, I think a lady over here asked that earlier. The only thing I can comment on is that the two children and the wife were found inside the home, and the husband, Keith, was found outside the front of the home. That's the furthest I can go.
Other cases you've had to deal with?
There was reports that the homicidal incident, the children and the wife were stabbed. Can you confirm that?
No, I can't confirm or deny or even comment on anything further. The only thing I've disclosed earlier is that we are putting out that at this point in time our investigation has revealed that all four of them were the victim of homicidal violence prior to when the fire was set at that home. Kathy, you had a question?
Paul be considered a person of interest, given that his family still survived, and there were other people who came from the home, and I'm guessing maybe some ballistics are on the way. You can't call him a person of interest at this point?
No, I can't. It's not prudent of me to declare suspects persons of interest. The only time we get into that business is really in two reasons. If there's somebody who's a defendant, like we've discussed with respect to the Ocean Township arson, or if we're seeking the public's assistance on somebody that requires, that might need notification in the public's eye. I really can't go any further. Kathy, last question. What'd you have?
How does this crime compare to some of the others your offices had to deal with?
This is, I can speak for these gentlemen up here in the entire Monmouth community, that this is one of the most heinous cases that I think they have ever investigated, that we have ever seen. And, you know, there's no shortage of that, unfortunately, in our history here. But I'm encouraged at the same time that we really do have dedicated, outstanding detectives and investigators that in their hearts they'll solve this. I mentioned earlier they want to give justice to the Canaro family. That sometimes that term is thrown around pretty commonly in trite fashion, but we really mean it. And we really hope that we can solve this. So to that end, anybody that can help in any regard, any leads, even if it's an indirect something or other, please contact us in law enforcement. Any little piece of the puzzle might make a difference. If you're not comfortable communicating with law enforcement, the Monmouth County Crime Stoppers is a 501c3 charity that takes information, tips, or otherwise in completely anonymous fashion, in some cases for reward. And we don't work with them. They don't share identity or anything, but they will share tips with us. And I'm sure they're going to be plugged in on trying to help us with this one. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your patience with us. Just stay tuned. If there are further updates, we'll either put them out by social media or through our public affairs offices. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you all for your patience.
Is there a mugshot, sir? There's one on Asbury Park Press. Is that from today's arrest?
It's on their Twitter.
Yes.
Oh, it's on. And,
Yes.
Do you know what the relationship was between the families at the time?
This is a mugshot. Let me just clarify. We don't release mugshots. When we release a picture of somebody who's in arrest, it's usually a driver's license picture. That's probably a driver's license picture.
And just a
Yeah.
clarification before you said that Keith Canaro suffered gunshot wounds, plural, I want to make sure I heard you correct.
Yes, that's right. Thank you all for your time. I hope you all have a good Thanksgiving. Appreciate seeing you today. Yeah, no kidding.